Please visit www.justiceleagueestatesales.com for upcoming sales. And tune in every Tuesday at 11:20 a.m. on WOCA and learn how the team can help you.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Midday with Joe.
It's time for Midday with Joe.
Hello, Robin. Hello, Larry.
How you doing, Joe?
It's Veterans Day.
It is Veterans Day.
The 100th anniversary of the inauguration of Veterans Day. The first time 100 years ago they declared it being veterans as a whatever. It's 100 years ago. That's it.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. I just found that out.
So,
people just feed me information and I send it out there.
So today, because it's Veterans Day, and because you are a veteran.
Yes, I am.
And because you served on an aircraft carrier.
Yes, I did.
I would like you
on
to
land.
Tell us how it happened that you became a radio announcer on that aircraft. How did that happen?
Fortitude.
Oh, you tried for it?
Oh, heck
you weren't recruited?
No, we had to audition for that.
Oh, really?
That's one of the first places I see my MO, which was a cook. That's what I was. That's what I did, was a cook. But what am I going to do after 12 hours of cooking?
Eat.
And another 12 hours of sleep? No, I don't think so. So I found my way right up to the place that they did it, which was right under the bridge.
Was there already an operating radio station?
Oh, heck yeah.
So there were other radio announcers on board?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So you were up against all the other ones, and I went up there, and I did not sound like I sound today. I was, when I first went there, they thought I was African American. I was a man of color.
What happened?
Because, well, that's the way I presented it. And it wasn't right.
Oh, okay.
And he says,
in other words, the way you sounded.
The way I was projecting.
You were doing like a stereotype thing or something?
The stereotype, yeah, right. Okay. And he said, no. Just be yourself,
Yeah.
So I just, boom, and then the rest is history. So I was on there. I would work my 12 hours and go up there for 4 hours and work, and then sack time, And that I did my whole tour in Vietnam twice, or twice and a half.
Where was the boat at that time?
Vietnam, in the Gulf of Tonkin.
Oh, wow. So you were inactive. The planes that were coming and going from the ship were
they were,
heading into, my God.
I have record. That's what I just bought a reel-to-reel, an old-fashioned one. And I'm going to see if I can resurrect some of the tapes and just play them every once in a while. Which I had planned to do it for Veterans Day, but it didn't.
So was the soundproofing effective, or did it not matter?
Semi. Because again, we were we were upstairs, away from most of the noise.
Okay.
It's all solid steel. Everything's solid steel. So a space on the size of here was like luxury.
Yeah.
They had a production room. Well, they had two studios back to back. And in those two studios, there was 3 radio stations. One was automated. Back then, it was called elevator music.
Ah, okay.
And at one time I was on all 3 at once.
So how did the people on the ship, the other sailors, how did they listen to you? Did they have a radio, or was it
radio? But it was all wired radio. It wasn't broadcasted out, so it was all wired. But I forget exactly how they got how they got the signals there. But
the music that you played, I'm assuming it was a music show you did?
Yeah, there was no news talk, but we spoke. We could talk in between the songs and tell what's happening. We made ads or PSAs, and if I could find some of that archives, I'll because I recorded some.
Yeah.
And I did both rock and roll and country, And then, of course, elevator music was automatic. And for those that remember the game Battleship,
Right,
stuck into plugs, well, that's the way the computer looked like, because you would put it in and it would go, go, go. And then you want a commercial, you pull a peg, you put it up here. And they were big reel to reel. And it would go, and it would click, it would stop, and then it would play the cart machine. Which, for those who don't know what a cart machine, it was like an 8-track.
Yeah, right.
Those that don't know what an 8-track is, look it up. And it would play the commercial, and then so I did the commercials. Me and the rest of the crew, we did commercials, and then they had the other gentleman that did it full time, and they had on the other side of the wall, the bulkhead as they called it, was an actual TV studio. And he was there, and he was in front of the camera in a nice suit and tie from the waist up. The waist down, he was in shorts or whatever he was wearing, whatever his MO was. And he would just do it. But it looked all professional, and they would do the weather.
Goes to my mom.
Hey, Mom! They would do all the weather and the news from around the world. So that was our connection to the world, because remember back then there was no internet in the 70s. Right. I went in 71, so there was no internet back then. So anything we got from home via mail was already 7 days old. Or more. There was one time I went on leave, and I came back, and the chaplain wanted to see me. And and when the chaplain wants to see, that's not good news usually.
Yeah.
And I was holy sugar.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was the opposite. My parents got a hold. They knew the congressman personally. The congressman got hold of the Red Cross, and the Red Cross got a hold of the chaplain on the ship to get a hold of me, because they had not gotten mail from me from over 2 weeks.
Oh, they thought something happened to you.
Yeah, well, I used to mail every other day. Every other day, like clockwork, I would mail a letter. Boom, 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 boom. And when you're in Vietnam, there's no postage. It's all the government pays for it. It's all free, whatever.
Okay.
You put a code on it. I forget what the code was. But it wasn't my fault. It was Uncle Sam's fault. It's somewhere between Vietnam and New Haven, Connecticut. It got clogged for 2 weeks.
Oh, no.
And all of a sudden, they got them all at once. And they put them all in order, whatever. So that was like, oh, good. It's not nothing happened. Nobody died. Nobody else. So it was like, kind of one of those kind of moments. I was like, okay, yeah.
Did you ever have a president or another VIP show up on the ship?
We became a flagship, which means the admiral used us as a flagship there in Vietnam. So he has his stint, how long he stays in the area. But the aircraft carriers are supposed to do 6 months on, 6 months off. And our sister carrier was Enterprise, which is nuclear. We were the last of the diesel pushers, whatever you want to call them. So, with that said, he was on the aircraft carrier Enterprise, and we were here, and he flew from his, and they changed the flags, and they came on board our ship, helicopter from over. But it was weird to see your reflection in the water, because you see the aircraft carrier when you get on on dock, in California, but when you're out at sea and you see your shadow, like these two gigantic floating cities, 5,000 men.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Wow, we're that big too? Because I think like 12-foot difference between the two ships, something like that. So that's who came on. As far as dignitaries, he was the biggest one. You can't get much bigger than the admiral, except the president.
So did you do radio while he was on, and did you interview him or?
No.
No.
Now the man that did the news, maybe he did that, but I'm not good at that kind of thing. I never have been. I can't do news like you do news. Your minute news you do and all. No, and your news bites. Joe doesn't do that. I can't. I was forced to do it once, and I destroyed it, and they never invited me back again. It was an emergency radio gig way back when, WMMM.
Now, some people realize this, not everybody, that you're known as Joe the Music Man, or Music Man Joe?
Yeah, Music Man
So does
Joe.
that stem from that?
No, that was my own moniker I put on my.
So the music you played on the ship,
That was supplied by Armed Forces Radio and Television.
Was it records? Or?
I have 2 records on my wall from them. Someone donated them to me. But yeah, it was each. Well, back then, let's see, we had 45s, and we had the big ones like I have on my wall, and all the music was donated to Armed Forces Radio and Television. No royalties, nothing paid, and everything. But they were produced in California before we got them, and they had their own codes and everything that we used. But at the beginning of all the songs, they would say, Armed Forces Radio. And then we go into the song, so no one could copy the songs. How many people wanted to get the song, the whole song?
Yeah.
So a lot of the songs, you would miss the beginning of it, and then as soon as the radio, and then people would record the songs anyway. But for the licensing, so to show them that it was Armed Forces.
Are there times when you just happen to be driving, you hear a song that reminds you of those days?
Oh yeah, you still do it.
Like
I don't remember.
No,
Do you cry? Do you get teared up and emotional?
I don't
sometimes
get
when you
teared
hear?
up. I get emotional, but I don't get teared up. It takes a lot to get me teared up.
Were there any people when your fellow sailors on the ship? Would they give you requests sometimes, or
I
bring
never did
one
get.
in there?
We did have a phone, but I never did get a request for per song. I played all kinds of songs, so I went the whole spectrum.
Did you do weather reports?
No, because we're at sea. The weather is wet. No, and I think the reason there was no weather reports is you didn't want the people, all the men. It's a beautiful day on the flight deck. No,
Did you do shout outs?
The poor guy's down the hole and they're working. He doesn't see daylight for 3 days, 4 days.
Oh my God!
Oh, it was. If I didn't walk up to where I was at the radio station, I would never see daylight because you're down below decks working all the time. No, I would make a point to take a moment and between. I would go up to the hangar deck, which is below the flight deck, which is where all the planes are stored. A big, an enclosed football field.
So there was no actual AM or FM signal. It was all closed wire.
Yeah.
So if you're in a ship nearby, you couldn't hear you.
No, they wanted to do that. But I think they squashed that idea because we had all the supporting ships around the aircraft carrier, and I was good. We're gonna branch out,
right? Have a network or something.
But they said no because that would give away the exact location of an aircraft carrier. Then they could home in. Hey, boom. So it was very prudent that they didn't. So.
Well, how did the broadcaster like Tokyo Rose during World War II? How did she even infiltrate the airwaves on?
Well, she had her own
and
transmitter
invasive?
site, I think.
Oh, okay.
That was World War II. Yeah, that was before my time. But yeah,
okay.
She had her own. Yeah, she would play the music, and the GIs would. Yeah, that's baloney. And not.
Oh, okay.
She's just propaganda on the airwaves. But we had the Miss Connie come on once, which was like a USO kind of girl. And she was all the guys are going gaga goo goo. I got to meet her, and
Oh, how
we
fun!
talked and everything. But yeah, she was. Of course, she was good looking, logically, and she sang. I forget what else she did. But I was hoping for Bob Hope or something, but
Yeah, a hot chick or Bob Hope. Let's see.
Well, you know how much chance you had. No, Bob Hope. I'd rather see. I knew I could actually say I seen Bob Hope.
I think that's pretty amazing that you're able to do that because you're great for morale and it was good for your
Oh yeah, I was
self-esteem, too.
like Good Morning Vietnam kind of thing. I was always up and and then in the child line while I'm helping them feed them, they would hey, you said that, didn't you? Yep. I was unfiltered back then too, so
Oh, how cool! This is great.
But
I
yeah,
love this.
if I could find them, I've got like the on-reel to reel somewhere in the archives.
That's cool.
That is so nice.
It kept me sane. Everybody had their own relief valve during Vietnam because you're boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
It's just constant. So a lot of war stories you could hear.
Wow.
Don't forget. Wednesday, I'll be broadcasting live from AAA right across the street from us here at the Paddock Mall at the radio station.
What time?
10 to 1. I'm sorry, 10 to 12. Dang it all.
All right.
10 to 12.
10 to 12, I'll be there. Broadcasting live from AAA. Come visit me. We'll have some fun. I don't know if we're going to give some T-shirts away or not. But we might. We might. You never know.
Yeah, that'd
You know,
be fun.
this is WOCA Ocala, broadcasting from the Paddock Mall, don't you know?
Midday with Joe.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. President Trump in New York City at the start of the nation's oldest Veterans Day parade. The first was 100 years ago.
To the 18 million veterans across our country, the First Lady and I have come to express the everlasting love and loyalty of 327 million Americans.
He's the first sitting president ever to